Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's April 16th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And I apologize for the mix-up on the mid-morning chart this morning. If you thought I was crazy, well, you probably had a good reason. I don't know how that managed to happen. Instead of, I thought I was uploading the mid-morning chart, and somehow I uploaded something from back on a holiday. So if I confused you, I apologize. But anyway, I got it corrected, and I don't know what happened. But we'll move on to the chart lesson. It, Pretty much this was looked like it was going to be a range day. We did break above the overnight highs, and we actually ended up closing above. We just kind of moved up to the next level and just continued sideways, kind of up and down again. And even though this really has an upward bias here, notice how we're swinging back and forth above and below the EMA. That you can trade it both ways when it's like that. When it gets kind of tight like this, or you start going completely sideways, generally you want to kind of stay with the trend. So keep that in mind because we got a break here, and so you're going to expect prices to try to make a new high. Doesn't mean they will, since it's kind of a range type deal here. But this is kind of a unique range because we're steadily making lower highs, which means you probably want to concentrate on the upper side. Although if you get a reversal pattern or a good setup and you got room, there's no reason you can't go short. So just keep that in mind. You'll see a few shorts here early on, and then for the most part it was longs until there wasn't really a whole lot of stuff after lunch. There's one or two trades there, but kind of a quiet day really. The volatility seems to be slowing down some. We still had this breakout here, but you could see that on a regular day when prices finally break higher. Sometimes they'll shoot up like that. Sometimes they'll reverse instantly, but sometimes they'll take off like that because there's a lot of buying that starts that's been sitting there, and it suddenly start eating through those buy stops. But let's back out, talk about the trades, and it won't take long today. So the first trade I saw when I came in was just after the 7 o'clock hour. Notice that we had this little trend working up, and we got our first close here. And notice what this is kind of unique. So notice what happens here. You got a new low, and so you got a leg up, then the first entry, then you got your second leg up, and you got a second entry short right there. It didn't really break higher again until right here after we tried to go lower a few more times. And so this is a higher low, but also when it broke higher here, this was a failed second entry short. So technically you could really look back and say, hey, it was a failed second entry short when it broke higher up here. But it didn't go very far. It was obvious that wasn't a failed break higher, and really with it being way up here, this far away from the EMA, you probably don't want to take it anyway. So if you didn't get fooled there, and actually that was before, that was way in the overnight, so I doubt anybody was trading up there anyway. So when it comes back down here and it finally breaks higher and can't go lower, I would treat that like a failed second entry short, but there's also some support across there, as you can see right there. So there's another reason. Treat that like a little failed break lower and a higher low. I marked this one green because it wasn't ideal. However, it's really close to being blue. You could flip a coin almost. It just depends on how you were looking at it. So you could look at this with either way. The reason I ended up deciding on green is because it's a first entry. But it is a failed break lower. It's a higher low. You could treat it like a failed second entry short. There's a lot of reasons to like that entry, and it's a nice move. Took it a minute to get going, but it turns out to be a nice move. And you would be looking for prices to maybe come after the close outside this trend line to make a new high and maybe test the overnight high. And that's exactly what happened. We actually went a little bit higher. So it turns out to be a nice trade, but you had to watch it closely. And you could really argue for it to be a little bit aggressive as well. So, like I said, you could flip a coin on that one. But notice we get the close outside. We move to a new high. And look at that big bearish bar. And then it tried to go higher again. And you get a lower high. And it actually went higher and turns. It goes out the low side. That's a great place to go short. Your prices are most likely coming back to the EMA at a minimum. But we could get a reversal here and go to the other side. And this turns out to be a really nice trade. If you catch this one trade with a runner, you can ride this all the way down. and then you actually notice you're coming back, you get a first entry there and you're moving down and you get a second entry here, and that's the first break of this pretty strong, fairly strong trend line. And notice it went higher here and then turns back down. I like going short right there. Just looking for it to run back down and test this low or maybe even this low. And we get a new low and then it bounces. So, and that really set the trend line right there on this side. And then we come back and we confirm it here. And again, we're moving up and you get a little close outside and a move to a new high all in one. But that's such a big bar. And that's really just a first entry short. So I was a little hesitant to mark that one. I think you're better off to wait and see where we go from here. And then it comes down, bounces, and you get a higher low here. This really confirms that trend line right here. But that bar is too neutral. And then you turn down again and go lower, and you go right out the other side all in one bar. I like going long right there because you've got your confirmation of the trend line, then you get further confirmation, and we're making higher highs and higher lows now. Notice that high, low, high, higher high, higher low, and off it goes. It runs up, you get a close outside, a new high, you get a lower high here, you're really close to the EMA, and we could be headed back to the highs, but then you get a reversal. It kind of pushes through the EMA, pulls back, fails instantly, goes out the high side, fails instantly, and starts turning down and goes right out the other. If you've got enough room to get out before that trend line, I like going short there. It was only good for a scalp, but that's all we'd be looking for there really, because we're making higher highs and higher lows, but it's still a range light because we're going back and forth above and below the EMA. And then of course it bounces, and notice what happens here. It bounces right off. You've already got a close outside, move to a new low, and this thing actually went lower and turns back up. It gives you a fairly bearish bar or bullish bar. So if it breaks above that, we're probably headed to the other side again, and there and off it goes. And then it turns down right off that. You get a lower high right here, but that bar is too bullish. But then it tries to go higher again and gives you that failed second entry long and a nice bearish bar. We're probably going to the other side again, so go short right there, and then off it goes. Same thing. And then it bounces here. I didn't mark this one because it pushed through. You really could argue for that to be green. I didn't mark it because it made a lower high. This is a fairly bullish bar, and it's a small bar, but it's inside a perfect doji. But if you notice, it's almost a repeat pattern of what you saw right here. You get the close outside and that little failed second entry long runs down, and then it reverses. But because it pushed through and we're underneath the trend line, I was a little bit hesitant of it. But it is a repeat pattern. It's very similar to that one. And so you could argue for it to be at least green. And then it pushes up and you make a lower high. But notice all the stem there and the 2-bar matching high. That's telling you that we're struggling to go higher there. And we did have a break here, so we could come back down, and it does come back down. I don't think you want to go short right there. There's not really anything that's probably going to trap a lot of people here, so even though it would have worked, I don't think you want to go short. And of course we bounce again, and we just start going sideways here. But notice what happens here before we really go sideways. You can see this, we're working down, and we move up, we get a first entry, we try to go higher again, we get a second entry short, it fails. It actually fails when this bar breaks right above this one. And so notice it drops lower, goes down the low side, then turns and goes right out the upper side. I'm probably going to take that one every time because we're looking for a retest of the high now because we've got a close. And there's also 2 legs. Notice we got a leg down, 2-leg correction, another leg down. And so you'd look for it to go higher there. And it does. But all you're able to do is scalp out, and then it's going sideways again. But notice again what happens. You get that little failed break lower, and it actually goes lower and turns and goes out the other side. That's a really big bar, but I still like it. It gives you a chance to get long. And notice it actually went 1 tick lower than that one. So and look how bearish that bar is. You're probably going to trap some shorts there. They think they've outsmarted all the longs here. And look how it takes off. And like I always say, sometimes those catch major important low points, or if it breaks out the high side high points for the day, or at least for a few hours or whatever. And once again, that turned out to be a major low for the day, and we went higher after that. We didn't continue higher all day, but it was a major point. We actually went, say, call this 2670. We'll just call it 72, and we went all the way to 2687. So, that's a 15-point move, which is a very nice move if you can catch that. So then we shoot up here, and there's actually a failed second entry short here, but I'm not going to take one right into that overnight high because there's a good chance that it doesn't go far enough to scalp out and then it fails like it did here. But notice what happens. It breaks higher, come back, you get a first entry, and then you're just kind of going sideways and you get that little failed break lower again. And we had one here, we had one here, now we got one here, and they're just like little repeat patterns. If you got enough room to get out before that overnight high that we kind of had marked there, and you might have even moved this up some now to right in there. And as long as you got enough room to get out there, I'd probably take this, because again, you may catch that important low, and you might, at the very least, get a measured leg like that one up, and you just measure it, and that's going to be my minimum. If we break through and go higher, that's going to be my minimum target right there. And you see we went right on through that and went a little bit higher than that. So I still marked it green because you need to have that room to get out before here. But if you do, you could this is another one, you could flip a coin. It's almost blue, because those failed breaks, especially if it fails counter trend, because the trend is still kind of up, everything's still pointing up here. Look at the EMA, even though we're going back and forth, it's really starting to point up even steeper here. So that's a good sign. And look at the move you catch, and it's running up, and there's actually a failed second entry short here. You don't really have room to get out before that high, and you're way away from the EMA. And then it pushes up and comes back. But at that point, you could argue that this might be a spiking channel, because if you kind of draw that trend line right up through there, you could say, hey, this may be a spiking channel. So you may consider that one. Again, I think you're better off to skip it. This one's definitely aggressive and definitely green, because we're a long way away from the EMA. But if this is a spiking channel and that turns out to be the channel working up through there, there's a reason to like that one. That confirms it. It's a really small bar. When it broke above, this is only like 3 ticks or so. So you might consider that one. And then, of course, we just kind of get stuck up here, start going sideways. I don't see anything up here I really like. There's a second entry long here, but again, it's just a huge bar. And it's only the first 2 swings of this. And so I really think you'd want a third touch of it. I mean, like I said, that is a huge bar. I'm not sure exactly how many ticks are in that bar. That's a 10 tick bar. So really big. So, you got to have 12, about a 12 tick or a 3-point stop for that. So, and you don't have much room to scalp out into that double top. And there was a lower high here. So you're better off just to skip that. And then guess what? You get you actually get that double top. Then you get a first entry, and you push on through, and you get a failed second entry long there. And you would expect that prices may break out here and fail. So now it looks like they're probably going to fail. So I like going short there. You do have to consider it's into that low right there. And you also have to consider that we've moved a good bit down. It's not exactly right off the EMA. And so there's a few things to be concerned about there, but it's still that reversal pattern that's worked so well for us lately. And once again, it was an easy move. And then look what happens. We come back up, and you get a close outside first entry, and this was your first close outside of this, so you would expect to try to make a new low here. And so we're working up. You get a close outside first entry, pull back second entry, it fails, and look at that big bearish bar. It's right after 2 o'clock, but I marked it anyway because it's that reversal pattern, and a huge bearish bar, and look at it go. And you actually had another attempt to go up and turns back down all in one bar, so you could even jump in there or add on there if you wanted to. And so not a lot of trades today. It seems like maybe things are trying to slow back down a little bit, and just maybe a slow Monday. We could be off to the races again tomorrow, so don't get overconfident that the volatility's over. There's still a little volatility even on this little move, but it's not like it has been where we get hours worth of. We only had a few minutes worth of volatility here, and there was some news that came out. It was kind of moderate news, but I think it was FOMC related, and I can't remember what time it was. It was around 11:30, I think. So this could have been around that time. I can't remember, but you could go back and look at the news items and see if maybe this news triggered that to push on through. But there's clues this is going to push on through because we're making higher highs pretty much all the way up. And generally when you see it flat on one side, and if it's flat on the highs and we're making higher lows all the way up, generally it's probably going to break on through. And if it's flat on the bottom and making lower highs all the way down, it'll probably generally push on through the low side. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up. No sense in, there's not much else we can talk about today. Just kind of a ho-hum day, but not a hard day. Not a lot of trades. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. Again, sorry about the confusion this morning early. Again, I don't know what happened. I'm going to look at it a little bit this afternoon now that I'm done with everything and see if I can figure out what I did wrong. But that's never happened before, and I'm pretty sure I loaded the right chart and all. So how we got an old post reposted, I do not know. But again, I apologize and sorry for all the confusion. But we'll be back again tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.